Good afternoon, Mr. Baxter. A big warm welcome to you on behalf of all Indian football fans and managers and overall football enthusiasts. It's a pleasure to have you with us today in this discussion. And to start off, why do you love football? What is it about football that you love so much?
Wow. Well, thank you for the invitation. First of all, thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. Why do you fall in love with football? I think if you put any toy with a child, the one that he was drawn most to is always a ball. If you throw a ball for a dog goes after his ball, you know. So I just think there's something very natural in the rolling of a ball. You know, maybe it's something to do with the turning of the planet or whatever, but it's got some attraction to human beings, a ball. And football also satisfies the need for competition. Football also satisfies the need for development. And in karate, they use the act of self-defense and the learning of that and the stringent training to gain enlightenment. And I'm guessing that many people gain enlightenment, learn about themselves in defeat, learn about themselves in success, how you deal with situations, learning new strategies, all of that in the game of football. And being able to express yourself. You know, I've heard famous footballers talk about, you see my picture in the newspaper, you see my soul on the field. And I think there is the reason that I fell in love with football. Plus my father was a coach at Aston Villa, so I grew up with football. Plus, you know, when you go into coaching, you learn about different facets of the game. And again, you're testing yourself in terms of communication and in terms of painting pictures for people in different ways, so that people that are very, very oral, they will understand you, are very visual, they will understand you. So all in all, I just think there's nothing like football for the journey that it takes you on, or if you allow it to take you on.
Beautiful, sir. Very beautifully put. Highly eloquent. So, your youth playing career and all the way up till 1975 with Preston North End, it was a good, healthy period of about 4 years. 71 to 73 was the youth period, and then 73 to 75.
Yeah.
How was your entry into the Preston North End? Because this was your first ever integration into a professional team. So could you share a little bit about your experience in that?
Well, I was born in England, of Scottish parents, and we moved up to Scotland. My father was at Aston Villa, but moved up and took a Scottish club when I was 13. So the last couple of years of my schooling were done in Scotland. I was scouted in Scotland by Preston North End and moved to Preston North End as a 15-year-old. My father was smart enough to have me stay on at school and take my exams and pass out in a somewhat honourable way, instead of ducking out early as Preston North End would have me. But I was pleased for that. I stayed on at school, then I joined Preston as an apprentice, cleaning boots, sweeping dressing rooms, being treated rather badly by the senior professionals, all sorts of rituals when you made your first team debut as a teenager. And at that time it was quite a tough school, but I hear many footballers say it was the best years of their career. And I would certainly say that, you know. You weren't aware of the bigger pressures in the game. You played because you loved the game, and you were ambitious, and you were hardworking, and you you were single-minded. And when I broke through into the first team, I signed my professional contract, and I had a couple of very, very good years where I enjoyed it immensely. And I always look back on my time at Preston as being a very good grounding.
It's fantastic. So the reason why I asked this question is because you literally went through the grind. I mean, you literally have had an organic growth in the professional team structure. And in 2002, you had that wonderful accolade of being the England under-19 manager.
Yeah.
So I'm jumping decades forward, because did this experience in Preston North End play on your mind when you were with this youth team, same fresh young blood? So any connection that you could relate to?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a good point, because as a youngster, learning the game, learning about myself, if you fast forward, you come to a society that's totally different. At that time, the collective was easy because people were very, very we orientated. Fast forward, and it's more me than we. What's in it for me? You know, I have my Game Boy, I have my PlayStation, I have my individual telephone and music, and society has developed along those lines that it isn't so easy to sell the we as it is to ask what's in it for me. So what played on my mind was that I wanted the England players that went through my tutelage to be very, very well aware of what brought us to this point. You know, what brought us to this point? Where do we come from in England? We've always been a hard-working, an island of people that many have invaded and few have conquered, but they've always been working together. And I didn't want us to lose that. And I was very conscious of the schooling that I had, and trying to give a part of that in a more modern sort of way, if you will, to the players that played under me. And I think both the players enjoyed that let's say that culture around the team, and we had some success with it.
So now I'm coming closer towards my home, which is India, and you've, from the under-19 team, you navigated your way through Finland, through South Africa. In fact, 2 stints with South Africa. So national squads, and then now you're here in a population of 1.4 billion people, with your experience of over almost 5 decades of just football experience that you have. So right between your ears, you probably have that holy grail of what it takes to take this promised land of football towards some success. Because we, as football fans, constantly are looking for the answers from the prophets, and you are one of those prophets. So with this vast experience, could you share with us, probably it could be either a strategy that we need to follow as Indian football players, or Indian football coaches, or Indian football managers? I know it's a very general answer that I'm asking, but before we zero in on any one particular aspect, I just wanted to let you know right in the beginning that any advice from you in getting our elite teams to reach at a very high level seems to be the main goal at the moment.
Yeah. Well, I think if you look at any nation, their culture will be always reflected in the sport. So if you look at football and you think of the German national team with their attention to detail and their machine-like efficiency, or you look at an African nation where life is chaotic, so the creative brain is stimulated all the time to find a solution, but the organizational part is hard work for them. You know, the same in Sweden, where it's a very logical, a very well-run society. People accept systems of playing football very easily. They understand that to be creative and to stick out and to express yourself is not always as easy. So wherever you go and play football, you will always see the culture of the country shining through. And I think that would be my advice, really, is the things that actually constitute winning football. They have not changed much over the last 50 years. How we have achieved that, when we've talked about, let's just say, Pep Guardiola's Barcelona or Bill Shankly's Liverpool, totally different, but they still achieved the same things. They fulfilled certain criteria. Now, the challenge for India is to, with the culture, with the strengths of the people, with their technical ability or their physical deficiency or whatever the package presents, it is to find out how in India we can reflect our nation through the way that we play football. But we have to we have to meet those criteria. Otherwise, we will be a nation playing football, but we will not be a winning nation. So that would be my first advice, that let's not copy Argentina, because Argentinians are not the same as Indians. Let's make a winning formula in India using principles that are used in other countries in the world, but solving those criteria in an Indian way.
So beautifully, really, I love the way that you summarize the entire ethos of a point and present it so simply and so lucidly. So I'm going to request you to share a little bit of more of that knowledge, sir, because you mentioned this point about the criteria. Is it possible, because we are so accustomed to, in our education system, being taught, okay, step 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Is it, if I could just request you to share with us probably the top 3 steps that any nation needs to follow in your perspective, which would fulfill those 3 most minimum criteria of excellence that needs to be done?
Well, I'll give you one. I'll give you one which becomes 2, and I'll explain the difference. So when I played in England, we had miserable pitches, we had miserable training facilities, and yet at the time that I played, Aston Villa beat Bayern Munich in the European Cup final. Aston Villa being not a fantastic team, and Bayern Munich being a super powerhouse of European football, and yet Aston Villa quite comfortably beat them 1-0 in the European Cup final. Now, Aston Villa played long balls to a centre forward, whilst Bayern Munich passed their way in a very modern way through the Aston Villa defence. Now, what happens when you do that is the principle of transitions, meaning at the moment that you either win or lose the ball, you are, if you're attacking and you lose the ball, you are spread out and not in good defensive positions. And when you lose the ball, how do you deal with that being spread out? Now, if you look at Liverpool today, Jurgen Klopp's counter-pressing solves that problem for him. As soon as they lose the ball, they stop the opponents from playing the ball forward, and they work around the ball so that they don't get hurt on transition. Aston Villa solved that problem against Bayern Munich by missing the midfield, by going over the midfield to a big striker. So if they lost the ball, they still had the whole of their team on goal side of the ball. So that negated, they solved it in that way. Bayern Munich today solve it in a different way. Manchester City solve it in a different way. And Liverpool solve it with their gegenpressing. So that is one thing. So how would we do that in India? Now, if you went to Sweden with the big Viking type of player who's physically powerful, you may want to go down the Liverpool route. Now, if Indians are not like that, do we use our speed and mobility to teach our players how to recover quickly into good defensive positions? Can we understand that? Can we do that? And can we prevent people attacking us when we're out of balance by recovering into balance quicker, because we are more mobile and we are more speedy than, let's just say, the big physical Swedes? So that's one example of how we would need to, and that's one criteria, because I'm guessing in the top 5 leagues in the world over the last 10 years, over 50% of all goals are scored on transition. Within 5 or 6 passes of transition, around 50 to 60% of all goals scored would come from that. So if the Indians can solve that problem, immediately you have got a bigger chance of either winning or being successful.
So amazing, amazing insight. Beautiful, really very well put, sir. So now the thing is, expectations are part of human nature. And especially with your wonderful record with Kaiser Chiefs. I mean, you gave them a double finish with the Premier Soccer League as well as with the Nedbank Cup. And so can we expect something of that sort with the Odisha FC?
Well, obviously that's what the management of Odisha FC are hoping for. That's obviously what I'm hoping for. That will only be achieved through the process. That will only be. I can't sit now and say we want to win a championship, therefore that is our goal. Therefore, keep your eyes fixed on that, because in Japan they say with one eye on the future, you only have one eye on the present, and therefore you've got 50% chance of being successful. So we have to make sure that, given that ambition and given our desires and our hopes and our dreams, that we can succeed in keeping both eyes on what we're doing now, the here and now, development, the process, be a better team, be a better individual, have more confidence, and with that, then some nice things can happen. So I think the first thing we have to do is make sure that we are paying full attention to here and now and enjoying the here and now, not scampering into the future. If only we could win 3 or 4 games in the next 5, we have to stop that, and we have to make sure that the next game, the next kick of the ball, that is the most important.
Just like all of us have now become global citizens, I mean, you are a global football guru, because you've really assisted so many football players with their career in so many different nations. So from that background, if I were to ask you to share with us the advice that you can give to football managers, because these are those young boys and girls who are going to work alongside the head coaches to try and assist the head coaches in ensuring that the head coach has everything that he or she needs to give the performance, give the players the best facilities and opportunities. What would your requirements be from this band of football managers, sir?
I think an important thing to know in that discussion is that when you manage, you don't manage players. You can't manage people. It's almost degrading to say that, we manage people. We don't manage people. You lead people, you coach people, you manage projects, you manage, and so a manager by definition is managing a project. Now, the coach will therefore be coaching the players. Sometimes we get that mixed up and we try to manage people. And in its very essence, that is degrading, and it's nothing that can be successful. I hear about this, this player is a little bit wayward, we need to manage him a little bit better. It's not, maybe you can coach him, lead him, inspire him, motivate him, but you certainly cannot manage him because he's not a project. So the managers, first of all, make sure you have a vision, and that vision is transformed into a project, and then you can manage that. And in that project, there will be a coach who will be coaching along those same lines. And that bridge between the manager managing the project and the coach coaching the players and try to improve the squad, that has to be a combination. And then if there's new players that need to come in, then that is a discussion between manager and coach. But The coach should not walk upstairs and suddenly start complaining about the project, because that's not his area of expertise. The same as the manager shouldn't really walk into the dressing room and start coaching or thinking he's the one that is leading the team, because that both undermines the coach and confuses the players and probably embarrasses himself. So when those lines are drawn and people are doing the things that they are good at, then I think you have a chance. At the beginning of all that, there's got to be a vision from either the coach or the manager or the club in its entirety, influenced by the supporters. You wouldn't want the West Ham supporters to be watching a long ball game, because they just don't want it. They would rather fail than do that. So the supporters will inspire a sort of football. The manager will have a vision together with the coach, and then he will manage that project, and the coach will do all he needs power to bring the players, develop them along the lines that will keep them on track to fulfill that vision and that project.
So extremely helpful for the young boys and girls watching this, because I think at some point we lose focus on where our eye should be, on which ball should our eye be. So that was very helpful. Thank you so much. So you spent a great deal of time on the African continent, and and you've had the good fortune of seeing the immense physicality of the game that the denizens of Africa are blessed with. So uh, has that given you some rare insights into football being a physical sport where the instrument is the body and of course the mind, and how is there anything which is translatable or can be carried away into different um, uh, cultures or places? Is there anything that we can learn from your experience in Africa?
As a coach, my work in Africa is more learning how to open different boxes. You're suddenly confronted with a person that, there are so many different cultures and languages in Africa. There are certainly different physiques in Africa. The Western Africans from Nigeria and Ivory Coast, Senegal, physical excellence, powerful, fast twitch fibers, despite being muscular. They are, and also slow twitch fibers. They can go for a long period of time. So you see the benefits of that. But as I said before, on the other side, their lives are not structured as well as they are, as well, that's the wrong word, I apologize. They're not structured in the same way as they are in a Germany or in a Sweden. So in that respect, their logical thinking is not as easy to, it doesn't come as easy to them. So in South Africa, we have the people from the Cape with one sort of heritage, and then you have people from up near the border, maybe in Limpopo. You have the Zulu boys from down in KwaZulu-Natal, and all of these have vastly different backgrounds and cultures and physiques. So what it taught me as a coach was how to get the best out of each type and how to put those types together into a balance. Now, one thing you've got to do when you're putting people together with different strengths and weaknesses is you've got to get some form of a buy-in for this is the vision that I have for this team. Now, if yeah, okay, coach, but they don't really believe that, then you have a honeymoon and then you'll be finished if you don't win. In that situation, winning is the only thing that will sell it to the players. But if they've bought into it, if they enjoy the way you played, if they see that this is motivating, this is inspiring, this is something I want to be a part of, I'm prepared to fight for this, then if you do that, then you can start to integrate the different strengths. And that's what Africa taught me. And I think when you do that, then you unleash that power. So if you have powerful players, there's no point having powerful players if the system of play that you have doesn't utilize that, or the player himself is so confused about his role, and that you get this thing, oh, African players are difficult to coach. Well, I don't think so. I think you have to package it correctly, yes, but I think they have to understand their role. Now, that isn't their fault if it's going wrong, it's the coach's fault. And so what Africa taught me as a coach was, it helped me to try to solve those problems, and it allowed me to practice putting strengths and weaknesses together, hide the weaknesses if you can, and bring out the strengths. And again, that on a mental level, we have to also think about that. For example, in India, how do we think? What is our preference in how to learn? Yeah, are we open and talkative? And the Australians, for example, they are very, very in your face as a coach. Says, no, I don't agree with that, coach. This was a great session, but that one we did yesterday, that was terrible. They will say that to you. No, I've not been in India for more than an airport here and there, and spoken to people and spoken to the squad, but I cannot see that Indian boys are going to be the same as that. They're going to be far more reserved. They put their teachers on a little bit of a pedestal, and they wouldn't dare to question them openly and show dissent. So they've got to be able to understand, and if they can't talk to me, I'm not going to be really sure that they've understood their role unless I can see it happening on the field. So I think we've got to work in an atmosphere of it's okay to talk. You know, criticism from me to a player is only information. Now, how I package that criticism can be positive critique, can be negative critique, but it's always got to be honest, and it's always got to be helping him to develop, and it's got to be accepted in the right way. Because if it's not, then after that first critique, he will not open his mouth because he will be scared of having that conversation. So I'm guessing that that's one of the things that we'll have to address in India, that people are comfortable with that learning process, and they don't think that failure is anything more than a piece of information that will lead me to the perfect solution. So I think that's those sort of things. I had lots of practice in Africa, and you see these grey hairs. That may be a part of the whole thing as well.
No. I think the grey hair is because of all the thinking that you do on the strategies and tactics. But thank you for being so candid. It's really wonderful to hear these nuggets of excellent knowledge. So they say that hindsight is obviously 20/20, perfect vision. So is there anything in hindsight when you look back that, or let me rephrase myself, what would be that one decision that you took, which you would take very differently if you could go back and change?
Oh wow! In game situations,
Up to you. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
In game situations, I don't look back and regret, because using the rationale that I've just talked about with mistakes. In games, I don't regret making a substitution or playing 4-3-3, or I mean, even if we lost, I'll give you an example. We lost 5-0 to Barcelona in the Champions League when I was in Stockholm at the No Camp, and I put out a weakened team. We had 3 days later a game where we could either win the league or we could lose the league in Sweden. And going into that Barcelona game, we had no chance of going through the group. So I had to field a weakened team, and we got hammered by Barcelona. now I could regret that. Yeah, well, it'd been better because we only lost 2-1 in Stockholm and we were leading 1-0 in the 84th minute. Yeah, I could regret that, thinking, well, we could have had a better run at them, but I don't regret it because it just told me, it gave me information that at that level you can't. At that level you can't. You've got to be at your best. So in games I don't regret that much, but maybe leaving clubs at a certain time. AIK was a little bit of a love affair for me and the supporters. You know, I came, they'd been away from the championship. I think it was like 10 years, and then we did the double. You know, so they wanted me to continue, and I left to go to the English Football Association. Maybe with hindsight, you know, if it wasn't the English Football Association, then I would have stayed. And it was a very difficult decision. So with hindsight, I could look at that and say, I wonder what we could have achieved if I'd have stayed another couple of years. But as you say, hindsight is perfect. Looking in the mirror, you always see it clearly. But
Thank you for sharing that. Your father has played for Aston Villa.
yeah,
A huge personality. Sometimes when we have parents who are in the same field as we choose to be in, we try to live up to some standards that we think in our minds that they would expect out of us. Did you
yeah,
go through that kind of experience?
absolutely. I went through it. My sons are going through it. Well, my oldest boy went through it. My youngest is now going through it. I went through it, and I tried to do what my father did with me. I think it helped slightly, but probably not completely. My father always reminded me that he was proud of me no matter what I did in football, that it wasn't necessary for me to be an England international before he was proud of me. He said, the characteristics that you show as a young man will decide what you leave behind you, how the effect you will have on other people. And that's where your respect will come from. It shouldn't come through, did he win or did he lose? It should be the way in which he approached his job. Was he dependable? Was he a good professional? Those qualities are to be proud of. And I've tried to do that with my boys. Now, it didn't help me completely because I still wanted, with every fibre of my being, to be successful, because something inside me told me that the more I can achieve, the prouder he will become. I don't know if that's right. I mean, I think I keep on telling my boys now that I would be proud of you if you decided to be a ballet dancer or a bank clerk or serve coffee as a barista. I would be equally as proud, because I see the qualities you have as a person, and that is what makes me proud. The decisions that you make in your life makes me proud. So I try to say that, but as I was, they are. I see in them that they want to push on, they want to be more and more successful to satisfy, I think, the need that they have to go as far as they can go. And that's not wrong. To want to be the best that you can be is absolutely not wrong. So I don't discourage that, but I want them to always know that my love and my pride is not based on 3 points or a transfer to Manchester City. It's based on much more fundamental things than that.
So beautiful to hear that, sir. So beautiful. I love the fact that you candidly share so many of your thoughts. So last two questions from my side. The first one is for all these young football players, very young boys, 16, 17, who watch or who will watch this program. Is there any advice that you could share with them? Because many of them are looking for guidance and mentorship, and that's sometimes not easy to find. So anything you would like to share to these young boys as they aim to be in the national squad or work at the highest level of professional football?
Well, I think there's two different groups that I'll speak to. I'll speak to the group that are striving to find a breakthrough. You know, that's the ones that haven't established themselves on the ladder yet. They're trying to make that breakthrough to have their chance. And to that group, I would say, be patient, because no two players' progress curves are alike. You know, we had Michael Owen at the English Football Association, who followed a perfect curve, physically, mentally, socially, tactically, technically. He followed this perfect curve that he got in the team early. He was a calm, humble person. He broke into the first team, played for England, didn't get carried away, and he just followed this perfect curve. Now that is absolutely the exception. Sol Campbell, who is now after he's played 50, 60 odd games for England, he broke in when he was about 21. He didn't develop physically till he was a very late developer. And so at the age of 21, he broke through into the youth national team and then went on to have a fantastic career. Stuart Pearce was a left back who played for Nottingham Forest and England for many years, but at the age of 21 was working on a building site, playing amateur football. So there are many ways, many roads lead to Rome, as they say. So for that group, perseverance, don't give up. Don't let anybody take your dream away from you. Keep going. You will know, when you look in the mirror, you'll know when it's time to look for something else. But don't look in the mirror and say, if only I had worked harder, if only I had trained better, if only I had not been disappointed. So for that group, I would say perseverance is the building blocks of a professional. And to the group that's already there, you have to be a 24-hour professional if you want to succeed, because it used to be professional during your training and during your game. Now it's be professional when you're sleeping, when you're eating, when you're the amount of water, the amount of the type of food that you are eating before training, after training, the strength training that you must have the discipline to do. So 24 hours a day, you are now a professional. And the day that you can't do that, then that's okay. But then move aside, because there are plenty of kids that are going to be charging behind you, because they will, and they will. And so again, maximize your own ability. Stuart Baxter was never the most gifted footballer. I was quite a good player, but I had a very good attitude to my job, to my teammates, to my development. So I don't regret never playing in the Premier League. I played as high as I think I could play, and I think that's important. That's important, and so perseverance, and to make sure that you are a 24-hour professional. When you've got one foot on the ladder now, to keep climbing, you've got to give yourself that chance to be a 24-hour professional.
So your positive attitude literally oozes through, no doubt about that, and excellent tips. Thank you again on behalf of our young boys and girls in sharing that. So the last question from my side. So even though we know that life is a definite journey, the mind is such a wonderful thing. It gives us the illusion of immortality. We keep living on as if we're going to live forever. So is there any pinnacle of the Sir Stuart Baxter journey that will make you feel like, yes, I've accomplished this life really well? Is there anything still waiting around the turnstile that you need to put in your kitty before you hang up your boots?
We're speaking about football now, because I think, Nelson Mandela said to me, when we beat Nigeria for the first time, when we played Nigeria, South Africa had played them 4 times before, and they'd lost 4-0, 4-0, 4-0, 4-0. And so the 5th time we played them was in the Nelson Mandela final of the Cup. And he came to me and he said, "Coach, look into my eyes. He says, I can see that we're going to be okay tonight. And we won 2-1. But he said after that, he says, Coach, you know that when you walk up that mountain and you're standing on the top, when you think, I've climbed that mountain and I've reached the pinnacle, he says, the only thing that you realize as you look out into the distance is there are many more mountains out there to climb. He said, so in football, he says, never forget that. Don't think that you've climbed the ultimate mountain, because there have always been more mountains out there to climb. And of course, he was absolutely correct. So in football, I know that there are more mountains out there for me to climb. And as long as I don't lose heart, and as long as I can keep on being a willing worker, then I think I will climb more mountains. The things that maybe a coach that's been in the game for so long sees more as being those golden moments now is that when you maybe affect when I get a message from one of my Kaiser Chiefs players when he calls me father, or when you have a young boy making his debut and he scores on debut and his father gives you a call the following day crying. Those moments are probably equally as valuable as when I was with Finland and we drew 1-1 in Germany with the Germans in a World Cup qualifier. As fantastic and as euphoric as that was, I think at this stage of my life and career, I think probably when my daughter gives birth to our first grandchild, then I think that will probably be the sort of moments that I'm looking for from here on in. But I would like to climb a few more mountains along the way as well.
So beautiful, sir. So beautiful. Any words? I was going to say any final words, but I'll stick with any words that you would like to leave the viewers who have listened for you. Last 40 minutes have been absolutely enthralling. So anything, and majority of our viewers are all going to be Indians. So we're waiting for you to come back to India and enter the bubble in Goa. So anything you would like to share with, whether they happen to be Odisha FC fans or any other football fans, any final words of this session that you would like to leave them with?
I think final words on the game and the season ahead. You can't avoid referring to the pandemic that we're experiencing at the moment, because we're going into a bio bubble in Goa. It's going to be without supporters. It's going to be very much a test for players, supporters, sponsors, management. It's going to be a test for everybody. A test of our stamina, a test of our adaptability. And my message to the supporters is play your role. Live with your football. Be inspired by the football. Understand what the players are going through. So have a bit more patience than usual. But let's all together try to make the season be a good one, despite all of the challenges that we are going to face. Some known, some unknown. So let's try to make it. Let's try to make it as good a season as we can. Why not try to be an example to the rest of the world of how, because I know in the States they've had massive ups and downs with this bio bubble. In South Africa, I spoke to my son who was with Kaiser Chiefs. He said it wasn't a pleasant experience because things just didn't work. Teams that were great played poorly. And even now we see in England in these times in the Premier League, some top teams, you can't recognise them. Now, my message is, let's try and make it the best that it can be. And let's try and make sure that the rest of the world look at us and say, that's a great example of people coming together and making the best out of a very difficult situation. So my message would be to the Indian supporters: enjoy your football, be passionate about your team, have understanding for the situation. But let's get through it together, and what we're doing, let's enjoy it.